way. There's no way.
The fact that we were able to pull this off and make this happen was great.
UCLA's Johnny Juzang was stopped Friday in his team's NCAA hotel bubble to do what he thought was a TV interview. He was just on his way to grab food dropped off by his dad, but there was an even better delivery waiting.
And then so he was just expecting my dad to drop him off his little meal, and he saw me, and you know, that was a really cool moment to share right before he goes into the big stage again.
Juzang's brother Christian is a former Division I player himself. He moved to Vietnam to play professionally and hasn't been home since last summer.
Literally since August or July. I haven't seen the dude in forever.
Although COVID took away Christian's team's chance at March Madness last year, there's no way he'd miss it this time around.
I've seen how hard he works, how disciplined he is, and how much time he puts into his craft. So to see everyone else get to now enjoy it and get behind it, it means the world.
Juzang told his brother he'd be hosting a watch party across the world with friends. So Johnny was surprised, to say the least.
There's no way, bro. Oh my God!
Because of the team bubbles, the brothers couldn't get too close during their big reunion.
He's standing right outside the door, so it was just crazy. I wish I could give him a hug.
So I want to go back to March Madness, and so you're here in Indianapolis. Everyone saw that clip of you at the door, and Johnny just was so genuinely surprised. Like, take us through how that segment kind of unfolded, and what was it like for you to like see your brother like finally, you know, but still through the glass, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it felt like it was, we had this ironic saying that when we were FaceTiming through the tournament, which is like, you know, we're there with you. Them being in a bubble and literally without contact to anybody.
Yeah, they can't see family.
Yeah, it's through a glass door. You know, it was like a constant reminder, like, we're with you. And I had called him right before I had left. I booked a flight literally once the Elite Eight game finished. Had to figure out how we were gonna work remote for the next 2 months, and then went to the airport the next day. So I called him and I was like, hey man, like, congratulations. And we were talking about how I was gonna have a watch party in Saigon, all my friends.
So he generally just, this
really
entire time, you know, you were just in Vietnam while you're,
Yeah.
okay.
And then I just didn't make any contact until I got there.
Who picked you up in Indianapolis?
Oh, my parents.
Your parents.
Yep.
Your sister was there too.
Yep. So they picked me up from the airport, and they have a ritual where they were kind of getting him food.
Yeah, I saw that on the piece, yeah.
Yeah, so then instead of them bringing it to the door, I did, and everyone got to see that cool moment. I didn't think it was going to touch people the way it did, because I had a bunch of people hit me up talking about they cried. And
it touched me, man, because it was your reaction when you saw your brother, his reaction when he saw you. He was like dumbfounded. He was just like, oh my God, I can't believe you're there in the flesh.
Yeah.
And I thought that was special. Was that an ESPN piece, or was that a?
That was I think CBS
piece.
and Bleacher Report Hoops. I think they collaborated on that and got that done. But I was really happy it got documented, not only for everyone else, but also so, you know, we could keep that as a family and look back on that moment.
But literally, was that from airport straight?
That was literally from airport to I think PF Chang's.
Okay.
And then
So you had no like rest time, or
No.
you got to Indianapolis, went straight to go see your brother.
Yeah.
All right, Final Four game. You're finally there, man. One of the most exciting games, like, just in basketball, of 2021, and I actually just think of overall in college basketball. Like, take us through just your energy and your thought process watching this game like unfold.
I was just happy to get to see, like, when you see that team play live, obviously going up against a historic undefeated Gonzaga team, the energy from even when we woke up that morning, like, it was there. And what's crazy is, obviously, you'd be used to having the full football stadium sold out, and so I wish they could have had that experience. But even without, the energy in there was buzzing.
Was it like 8,000 people, 7,000 people?
Yeah, probably something like that, instead of 80,000. But yeah, I mean, just going down the stretch, big shot after big shot, it was like a boxing fight, literally.
Both
going down.
Nobody made any mistakes. It was your brother was awesome.
And for them, it gets to overtime. Everyone has a moment. Sit back in their chair, recuperate. Everyone's high-fiving each other throughout the whole game, chanting. And then I just remember, like, obviously we'll talk about that big shot. Like, Johnny scores the ball, and we think we're going into double overtime. We're jumping, we're hugging, we're screaming. And before we could, really? And before we could look up, literally, it was like this sigh, and you don't know what it is, and we were looking up together, and you see Jalen Suggs on the, it's a moment that even hurts me. I can't imagine how they feel, you know, standing on the press line, and
I mean, it was replayed around the world, man.
yeah, over and over and over again. So, I mean, they fought their heart out. There was no, I don't think there was a better way for them to go out, for them to, you know, get beat by a half-court buzzer beater in overtime. They gained the respect of everyone through that process. So it was such a, that, like you said, probably ever a top 10, you know, college basketball game.
I mean, it was a heartbreaker, but it was like UCLA put everything out there, and Gonzaga had to. They couldn't make any mistakes, and it took that crazy of a shot to beat UCLA. So let's put it from that perspective, and that's why I was like, it was a heartbreaker, and I thought of this guy right away because I was like, I know you're feeling it.
I'm telling you, there were 20 of us in there. And you know, of course, we had some SC people.
So you, during the entire game, when they ever had footages of your cut to you, you weren't sitting, man.
Oh no.
I know I wouldn't be able to sit, but especially if Johnny was my brother. But yeah, you. I just kept seeing stuff of you pacing or whenever you were screaming.
Oh yeah.
Like,
it felt like.
I mean, it was your first game, dude, to watch.
Yeah, you feeling like you're trying to send your energy out there as best as you can. So there was no, I mean, just off the game itself, you couldn't sit down. But I mean,
I'm gonna move this for you.
I was trying to send my energy to him out there. And plus, the way that we had gone out as a Harvard basketball team the year before.
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
You know, we're thinking we're going to the tournament. Everything gets shut down. This felt like a continuation of that. So like my VBA championship, like I said after I won that, it felt like that was some closure to our Harvard season. And then for Johnny to go do this, I mean, like, that was also some closure for all of us.
Yeah, for those who don't know about your final season in Harvard, what happened? So, what was your guys' regular season record? And we know it ended because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
But you guys had a chance. You guys were, if it wasn't for COVID, would have been in March Madness. Is that the situation?
Essentially, we had 2 more games that we had to win. We felt very confident that we were going to win those games. They were at home. We were the favorites. And so, yeah, man, it was tough. It was tough to, like, swallow that. I got the news. I was rehabbing my ankle in, like, our Olympic, like, swimming pool area. And our coach came in, one of our assistant coaches, and just gave me this look where he was just like, it's over. Because think about it, 48 hours before we were playing, full arena, nothing, you know, you hadn't really heard of it yet. It was kind of on the edge that weekend, but it was like, hey, we're still playing. So, and 48, 72 hours later, we're 48 hours later, we're being sent home. And then the question is, are the athletes staying to finish their season? And then that was no, everything's being cut. So, you know, you put 4 years of your life into a goal, and then at the very end, that happens. It's tough. It's tough.
So you felt like there was definitely some unfinished business.
Right.
So how are the other athletes dealing with it? Your co-athletes?
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys talk?
Oh yeah. No, we're still all like very, very good friends. But I think there's this communal experience and feeling that we all share, and it kind of goes forever. Not only from a sports perspective, but from a student perspective, how graduation was taken, your senior spring was taken.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, anytime that class of 2020 will see each other in the future, there will be, like, probably a party, but, you know, this communal shared experience of, you know, we never got to have that final hoorah. So I think anytime we see each other, it will be a final hoorah, hugs with people you don't even really know that were in the class, just over that shared kind of experience, because that was like it was like an apocalyptic last couple of days. People were packing, people were partying, people were crying, leaving the party, crying, going to a different party. You didn't know what was happening.
Right?
No, yeah. It was like, all right, you got 3 days to pack your stuff and also have your senior spring before you gotta, be out of here. So I think just having that experience as a class kind of bonds you forever. Yeah.
My nephew is the same. I mean, the younger generation now, they all want to go into sports.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit easier to do that here than it is, say, in Asia, because you have universities that you're able to do both. Like the structure internationally is like you either do sports or you either do school. And I think so from an actual infrastructure perspective, it's possible to do that here. I think I'm a walking example of it. But yeah, no, I mean, every parent wants to make sure at the end of the day, like 99% of them, like, hey, you have a balanced approach to this. You're making sure you're staying in school and getting that part of it done. So they made sure I always had my grades right. And if they weren't right, then we'll take the sports away. I think that was kind of their approach.
So growing up, did they put you into like for music lessons? And then tennis lessons.
I had my piano.
There you go.
Yeah, I think when I started getting serious about basketball, I was like, listen, hey guys, like I can't spend a couple hours a week doing this. I need to put that into my game and make sure I'm actually doing that. So I think that might have been going into like middle school-ish time. And they understood. I think that you have to some degree, as a kid, as a child, you have to bet on yourself and let your parents know that you're serious about doing it. If you're really putting in the time, you're not just saying it, you're doing it, you're putting in the work. I think any parent will hopefully see that and get behind it. But at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily compromise like academics to do so. You have to make sure you're obviously taking care of both at the end of the day.
What was it about basketball that you said this is what you're gonna lean into?
You know what? To be honest, I've been playing since I was 3.
Okay.
So I don't even remember. I just stuck with it and I loved it for some reason because I played everything. I played t-ball, I played soccer, all at the local rec center, just like any other kid. And season after season, I was going back to my parents saying, let's do this basketball thing. That was the one that stuck. And then I think it just became this competitive drive. Like as I started getting older, it became a competition with the person to my left, to my right. The older you get, now there's rankings, and now you're taking it personal, and you want to basically prove people wrong. So there was always this ever-growing like competition. Like I gotta get this.
Was that the same kind of? You saw that in little brother too? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was. I don't want to take any credit, but before 8th grade, he was kind of like, I would have to kind of, come on, let's go to the gym. And then that 8th grade year, his work ethic, like I think he saw it in himself, he could really do this thing. And
he started really believing in himself.
I think he had believed in himself before, but I think he just like fell in love with the process. He did an extra year of 8th grade where it was really based around basketball. It was like a school focused on basketball. And so most of their day comprised of like working out. And I think he fell in love with the process that year. And to be honest, it's after that point, it was like we were going to workouts together, but I didn't have to drag him anywhere. If anything, it was him kind of like, you coming? So he was waking me up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, discipline.
Yeah, so that year, I think he hit his inflection point. Yeah, we were running around. We would start, like, for example, after my freshman year in college, this is what our typical day looked like. It would be, we literally wake up that early, hit the road, we'd go out to El Segundo for the first workout of the day. So all the way from Tarzana, it took us like an hour or something. It would either be sand dunes or on the court and probably like the sand dunes, like Manhattan Beach. And then we'd run around, get some food, and go for the second workout. And the second workout might be back in the valley, Sherman Oaks area. So we were in a car all day. Our trunk was filled with new clothes that we needed, workout stuff, basketballs, and then weights, stuff like that. And then finally, either like a scrimmage, an open run, or like real run, which is out in Linwood, the Jordan Summer League. And we'd end with that. We'd already had done 2-3 workouts that day.
Wow. So is that mom and dad that goes with you, or?
No, we were driving around. It was all self-driven. I hadn't played my freshman year, so I had something to prove coming back, and that
So
just.
was you driving?
Yeah, we would take turns driving at this point.
But your parents must be also very dedicated, because I mean,
Yeah.
you started out as middle school,
Yeah.
right? So during that time, your parents must be like driving you around.
Oh yeah.
So they must be very dedicated.
They were really dedicated. I mean, they were taking us to Anaheim and flying us places
Also
on
coming
the
down
weekends.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the sacrifices they made, they've given up their personal life. Like every weekend, you got my brother having a tournament, I'm having a tournament, my sister does music. They were literally, giving it all for us. So none of this is possible without them.
I have your mom to thank because she introduced me to you and your brother, and also, but mainly to your sister, because I feature a lot of great Vietnamese artists, and she introduced me to your sister's music and her band, and her
Deli
voice
Hours.
is-
Shout out Deli Hours.
Exactly. Her music, her voice is special. There's something that I'm really excited to bring her sound down here and introduce it to people closer to her age. So I want to spend just a few minutes about, so season in Harvard ended, and then you feel like you had unfinished business.
Yep.
How did you and Vietnam and the VBA happen?
I work for a really smart guy, also a Harvard alum, named Henry Nguyen. And he started the VBA about 5 years ago, 5-6 years ago now.
Heard a lot about it.
Huh?
I've
Yeah.
heard a lot about it.
Along with a bunch of other business ventures, but basketball has been a passion project of his for a long time now, and the ABL before that. So he had brought me to Vietnam. He brought me out to Vietnam 2 summers ago after my sophomore year.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, for the summer.
Was that the first time?
That was the first time I ever been to
Ever.
Vietnam. Because if you fast forward to me after post graduation, getting this phone call to go to Vietnam, I wouldn't have known anything about it.
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
I probably
say.
would have said no because I just didn't know anything about. And so I went out there, and it's a whole different world that you're not accustomed to. But I fell in love with it. It was nothing like I thought it was going to be. And he kept joking around. He kept calling it like a recruiting trip. Like, yeah, this is your recruiting trip. And I'm thinking he's being sarcastic. But 2 years later, his vision came true, which is, me coming over there to elevate Vietnamese basketball. So that was a genius move on his part. So he called me after we got sent home from school and asked me what I was doing and, asked me if he thought that I would be interested in coming out. Especially during a pandemic, everything kind of goes up in the air. So I'm a risk taker. I thought that was the play that not only for me going over there, it's really for everyone else. It's really for the Vietnamese kids. It's really for impact reasons and influence. I felt like I could really impact a lot of people who hadn't seen Vietnamese people and also sports in that light. And I think I did so pretty well. But that's how it all came about. I mean, he was kind of the point person for that and made that happen. And because without him, I don't think I would have been back there.
So then that happened. So Harvard ended, and then how soon after did you?
Yeah, he called me pretty quickly after, and then I had Vietnam. It kept getting pushed back just because of COVID. But I left home September 3rd.
Wow.
And this is the first time I've been back. Season ended in December.
And it was going right into their bubble, their whole.
Essentially, yeah, they had all the teams in one city. That was like their version of the bubble. So we weren't traveling. The North is a little bit more rampant with COVID right now. So everyone was in Saigon, which is great, honestly. I love Saigon. So I didn't feel the need to go anywhere else. So yeah, it's been an amazing time so far. Like that original summer I spent there is when I really fell in love with it. That was actually the first time in my life that I was like very, very proud to say I'm Vietnamese. Because I just hadn't had exposure to it before. My mom left when she was 3, to come over here. So I didn't necessarily grow up knowing what it was.
Yeah, it seemed like from high school all the way up to college, it was just basketball, and so you didn't really got to experience even the local Vietnamese culture down here.
Yeah. Like my grandma obviously speaks fluently and all that stuff, and she knows how to make all this good stuff too. But aside from that, like I didn't really have that experience. And in the basketball world, like there's not that many Asian people, especially when I was growing up, like playing the sport at the high level. So that was the first time that I was really. But when I came back from that trip, I was everywhere, like so happy and proud to say that I'm Vietnamese, and that still stands today.
So how's your experience like working with the other Vietnamese basketball players in Vietnam?
Yeah, no, they're cool. They're cool. Like
the heritage players and the locals. Yeah.
One thing about like just the local Vietnamese players there is that like they love to listen and they love to learn. It's kind of like everyone checks their ego at the door. So they were really coachable. Like they were always listening to what I had to say and like how I could help them out. Because that was my biggest thing. Like we're gonna come out here and win games, but I also want to make sure like during my season with you guys, that hopefully I can pass on some knowledge about the game that you guys can hold on for a long time.
What do you think is gonna help Vietnam's basketball kind of elevate to compete against that region, to beat Team Thailand, to beat some of these other other programs that are getting better?
I feel like now it's starting to happen a little bit, but I feel like those players are starting at a younger age at the end of the day. If you get to a certain age and start playing basketball late, it's really, really tough. The coordination of basketball is not like baseball, it's not like football. It's kind of a mix of everything. So if your movements and coordination aren't there, I've seen even in the VBA at the level, like it's hard to pick up late. So I think honestly, building out that infrastructure of competitive basketball, obviously good coaching and training at a younger age, I think that's gonna be something that makes the biggest difference.
What's the training like in Vietnam versus the training in America for basketball? For like sports? Because I'm a chiropractor and I specialize in sports medicine. So I've dealt with a lot of like athletes.
It's night and day for sure. Obviously they're just starting, so it's hard to kind of compare apples and oranges. But yeah, like what I had out here, from body work to on the court work. I mean, it's been a game here for decades and decades and decades and decades. So there's just so much more knowledge about it. But what I will say though is like they did, as far as like some of the treatment and stuff, they did actually they overshot some of my expectations, to be honest. As far as like some of the recovery stuff, the treatment stuff, but as far as like the training, it's definitely it has a ways to go.